All right, in today's very special podcast, we're going to be talking about 5 sneaky ways that guys secretly lie to you while dating. Gary, I've been kind of lying to you today in our session.
Oh, no. What are you? Come on, not me. No.
I'm not wearing pants right now.
Oh, God.
I'm wearing shorts, okay?
Okay.
But we all do that on Zoom meetings, right? Come on.
It's
Come
true.
on, man. You know? Nothing like a little underwear on a Zoom.
Just the pro tip. Next time, just say I'm wearing shorts. Don't say I'm not wearing pants.
It's still the truth. It's still the truth. But in all seriousness, we are going to be getting to some lies, honestly, that men tell you while dating. And it's funny, before this, while Gary thought I was wearing pants, we just got into a whole debate about, like, should we just totally crap on men right now and totally shit on them? Or should we, what's the balance here? And the reality is, everyone lies while dating, but men lie in a particular way. And given our expertise of not only being guys, and my expertise as having coached men in love, as well as our expertise of coaching literally tens of thousands of women in their love life, we have a pretty unique perspective on this one. And we've seen 5 big lies that can really set women astray. So I think this will be a good one.
Yeah, and I think so much of this, I do feel a little bit like we're breaking bro code on this because we are going to talk about the things that guys do that are like typical guy moves that I don't think women really know are even happening most of the time and don't recognize it as happening, and certainly not how to address it. And so I feel a little bit like a traitor to my brethren with this, but at the same time, this is a podcast for women. This is what we do with our clients all the time, constantly giving that male perspective, the thing that women don't realize and don't think about. And so I think what's important with this is we're calling this lying because it is fundamentally, when you're not telling the truth, it is lying. Guys wouldn't necessarily consider any of these lies because they're creating these perfectly crafted linguistic puzzles that give you just enough honesty to seem possible without it being an out and out blatant lie, but yet at the same time still being a lie. Like, guys don't get a ton of credit for being good with verbal skills, but this is one of those areas where they shine. They shine.
Yeah. I think the reality is most people, men and women, the vast majority of people, really don't want to think of themselves as lying, being liars, being dishonest, or being untrustworthy. And look, we all know that those things are bad. So we want to avoid like the blatant lies, right? That's just what people do. Like most people, some people just lie outright. Most people, though, they don't want to be terrible people. And they find these weird ways to kind of manipulate you. It's like a psychological minefield of verbal manipulation, and they're a little bit harder to detect. So today we're going to be going through 5 of these that I think it's really going to enable you to get a feel for his character. Yeah. Because something that we really encourage our clients to focus on when they're looking for love is to look for a high character guy. Right? It's not just a guy who can walk in, who can 6'5" and own a room and have the best suit in the place and the $20,000 watch and the confidence that just lights up everyone in the room. Yeah, certainly we're going to target the right types of people for you, but most importantly, underneath all of that is someone who's high character. Someone who's high character is going to be a great partner, they're going to be a great husband, and be a great father, and a great family member.
I love what you said about how no one wants to think of themselves as a liar because people want to give you just enough truth so that they're not lying without blatantly telling you something that's false. Even terrible people, terrible guys out there, which is a very, very low percentage of men, right? It's like a 1-2% that are just like the world's worst. They are not even going to give you blatant lies because they know that those lies are more easily detected. And so there's this like subtlety to all this where someone can say something to you like, I'm not seeing anyone right now. And that can mean everything, great, or it can mean absolutely nothing. And so what we're really going to do today is help you all become a human lie detector to understand the art of what's not being said. And so we got 5 signs of lying loopholes that guys use to be a little less than fully honest.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I feel like we just jump right into these lying loopholes. Gary, you want to do the first one?
First one. Number one, phantom wording. So this is where they're using intentionally vague or imprecise wording that allows you to misinterpret the meaning, right? And so they'll say things like, yeah, we spent time together. You're asking about some woman in his life. Yeah, we spent time together. Well, what's that mean? Like, I spend time together with people at the gym every morning. I don't like that doesn't necessarily mean anything at all. Or it means everything. Like time, we were friends. Wow, friends. That covers a lot of ground, right? Sometimes guys will just give like I might have done that. Yeah, like they want to admit something, but not really. I might have done that. And so it's giving you just enough to have like almost plausible deniability where you can read into it like, oh, when he says he might have done that, I'm sure he didn't. Because if he would have done that thing, he would remember it and he would have said that. And it's like, you're doing most of the work there in the interpretation and he's not. And so he's just leaving it purposefully vague with this phantom wording so that you jump in and do the work for him.
Just like slithery snakes, people who do this type of stuff. You're just like, you can't pin them down. It's like, what are they actually saying? What's going on here? It's so annoying. I can't stand people that are like that either, even outside of romantic. It's just like, be upfront. What are you really trying to say here? It's ridiculous. It's all BS.
I feel like people do this in job interviews, right?
Big time.
Right. It's like, what was your last position like? Well, I was pretty high up in the company. And it's like, well, were you? Like, what's high up mean?
Right. Well, what did you do at the last company? A lot of hyper strategic, important initiatives that were synergistic with the company. It's like, enough of the corporate speak. What are you saying? Just use words that make sense. Ugh. Which leads us to the second lie of loopholes that men use, which is escape clausing. And this is basically adding an extra phrase or some type of qualifying language that really puts the information in a very favorable context, you might say. Like, it's kind of like a contract loophole, right? So it's sneaky because it technically is telling the truth, but it also softens and shifts or kind of like reframes the whole meaning to protect that person. So, for example, let's say you ask a guy, so are you still on the apps? Which, by the way, I think that's a pretty lame question. I wouldn't ask that question in that way. But let's say you did ask that question and he says, well, I'm not seeing anyone else right now. The interesting thing about that response is, he didn't answer your question at all. And B, the right now part of that is doing a lot of work in that conversation. Not seeing anyone else right now. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
This has happened. This one's in here because this has happened to our clients multiple times. They'll say, we were having the talk about exclusivity, and he said he's not seeing anyone else right now. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't count for anything. Like, what do you mean? But he says, and he's not seeing anyone else right now. I'm like, well, why do you say right now? Right? If, the response you really want is, I'm not seeing anyone else, and nor do I want to see anybody else. I want to spend my time with you. Like, that's clear. That's unambiguous. Right now just basically means right now in this moment on a Wednesday afternoon, I'm not seeing anybody else. Right. And starting Thursday night, that might change, right? And he's still not lying. He's just qualifying.
Well, with the little love steps, we have 7 little love steps that help our clients go from being single to a long-lasting relationship. And there's 7 of them. And we have little love steps 5 and 6. And there's a big difference between the 2 of them. Little love step 5 means that you are talking to multiple people, you are slowing things down, you are what we call pacing in the connection to determine if he's a good fit for your love vision. But little love step 6 means you are an exclusive, committed relationship, and we start setting boundaries for that relationship. So there's a huge difference between the 2. That's like the big one, is if you're in little love step 6, you're in a relationship, right? It's very clear. But I've had clients over the years try and create a little love step 5.5, where it's like, yeah, he says he's like not really dating anyone else right now, or he's not really on the apps, but I did see him on the app, but he doesn't check it very often. And there's not many things that will make me go bonkers on a client but it is the 5.5 thing became a thing for a few years, Gary. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but this was a few years back, like probably 4 or 5 years back. But oh my God, I shut that thing down so quickly where I'm like, there is no part of the little love steps where 5.5 exists. It is, you are either exclusive clearly, and we map out exactly how to have that conversation in many different ways so that it's very clear. You're either exclusive or you're not. There's nothing in between. That's it. And if he uses any of these types of escape clausing, then you, my beautiful lady, are still in little love step 5, which means you should still continue exploring other options. You know, it really is that clear. And I think the clients who like adopt that thinking, they never find themselves in casual situationships again. Like it's not a thing. It's not open for debate. It's a non-conversation. There's no escape clausing. It's just straightforward. This is the situation.
So there are no decimals in the little love steps?
Dear God, no. No decimals. No decimals.
Yeah, I have not heard that 5.5 thing, but it doesn't surprise me because this is one of the trickiest forensic word analysis things that I think clients don't do when they need to. Like so many other times, they'll forensically word analyze texts and things, but then when it comes to the commitment and exclusivity conversation, it's like all that somehow flies out the window. Because another one I've heard clients say is, they'll ask a guy kind of, what are we? Like, what, how do you think of our relationship? And the guy says something like, I guess we're kind of boyfriend and girlfriend. And she's like, see, I told you we're exclusive. We're committed. I'm like, no, kind of. What does kind of mean? And it's like to address these things in your relationship, you're having these discussions, you want to ask. Someone says, yeah, we're kind of in a relationship. Well, what does kind of mean? I'm not seeing anybody else right now. What does right now mean? And don't fill in the blank for him. Just ask and have him explain, because it could be an honest, simple mistake. Or it could be he's being purposely evasive and you want to figure out which is which.
He could be purposely evasive, or he could be a little bit shy about saying we're boyfriend, girlfriend. And maybe he'll just be like, no, I mean boyfriend, girlfriend. Like I was just saying kind of because I wasn't sure about how you felt. Okay, cool. Yeah. Now that's clarity. Now we're in little love step 6. But if he's like, well, what does kind of mean? It means, well, I like seeing you and I like spending time with you, but, I'm not really looking for anything super serious right now. Right. Now we're back in little love step 5, right? Like it's just getting that next level of information at that point is going to set you free. And don't let yourself fall into this trap of sometimes we just hear things that we want to hear and we interpret it in a way that gets us the desired result. But guess what? It might get you the desired result for today, but in 3 months, God help your soul. Like it's going to be rough. Not to be dramatic here.
Yeah. If you make it too easy now, you're going to end up in a hard relationship later, right? And that's what you want to avoid. And I think the third line loophole that guys use a lot, and it's a little bit of an undercurrent of a lot of these things, is you have to really pay attention to what he's not saying, right? So he'll answer the question, but doesn't really address what you were actually asking. So they're not lying. They're giving a viable reply, but they're leaving out the really important part. It's highly evasive. And so, in nerd speak, we would call this an error of omission, right? They're not saying something that's objectively false, but they're just leaving out pieces. And so you can ask something like, are you seeing anyone else? And he responds, how could I? I'm here with you. Right? It's not a clear answer. If the person wasn't seeing anybody else, they would just say that. Right? Another version of this is, do you love me? And then they answer and say, I care about you more than I've ever cared about anyone else. Ooh, that sounds great. It sounds like, so he's letting you, what we've talked about before is fibbing, filling in the blank for yourself of, he said he cares about me more than he cares about anybody else. He didn't say he loved you. Now, it's a whole separate thing whether you should care or whatever, but it's like, he's not saying the thing. There's one last one that I think is really important. That's super smooth and very classically what they're not saying. It's, what are you looking for in a relationship? And a guy answers in some kind of highly romanticized version of, I'm looking for a deep connection, the counterpart to my soul, someone who can make every moment more magical. And it's like, that's just super slick speech for really, what's he looking for? He's looking for sex. He's looking for sex. Like he's trying to be like super smooth and romantic. And it's like, you're trying to ask, like, are you looking for a serious, real, fulfilling long-term relationship? He drops the romance bomb on you. And it's like, he's just doing it to sound all like a super romantic guy. And it's like, you know how you want to have the most magical connection? When guys start talking magical connections and souls and deep connections and all that, it's just sex.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's just, it doesn't make sense to answer a question like that in that way. Like, look, if a guy's talking about a magical connection, there's some softies out there, I would argue, that might say something like that, but it would be in a different context. Like when you're asking someone pretty straight up, like, what are you looking for in a relationship? A guy who's looking for a relationship would be like, I'm looking for a partner who X, Y, and Z, or I'm looking for a woman who X, Y, and Z. Now he's answering the question because implicit in the question is that you are looking for a relationship. So what are you looking for in a relationship assumes that you want a relationship. So if someone's not answering that question in a clear way, that's his way of saying, you know, I'm looking for deep connection, a woman, a counterpart to my soul. It's like, yeah, he doesn't want a relationship. Nope.
Right.
Doesn't want it. No way. Another lying loophole that we'll see from a lot of guys, we'll hear about this and we got to reframe it with our newer clients when they start getting out there and dating, is deflection. And that is simply avoiding the conversation by answering a different question. Maybe you change the topic. Maybe you answer a question with a question. That's my favorite one. Right, Gary? So, for example, let's say you ask him, are you still seeing your ex? Or are you still talking to your ex? Would be a more likely question. If he responds, why would you even ask me that? Don't you trust me?
Shady.
Sketchy. Sketchy, dude. Right? Or if you're asking him, let's say you didn't hear from him for a couple of days and you're in a committed relationship and you're like, where were you yesterday? Or where were you last night? And he goes, why are you always checking up on me? It's exhausting. Deflection. Deflection. It's weird.
Yeah, not answering.
And
like, just answer the question.
just answer the question. And the thing is, like, humans have been fine-tuned to have pretty good bullshit detectors. Like, we really have. We're pretty fine-tuned to this with our intuition. When someone is just being a little bit off, there's that kind of feeling we get in our gut that something doesn't add up. The problem is when it comes to love, when we love a person or we are building a relationship with that person, we tend to override that intuition and try to hear what it is that we want to hear, because the heart can be stronger than the gut. And so if you're finding that, you know, he answers a question a certain way and you get this immediate feeling in your gut, but then you're quickly overriding it from your heart because you're like, oh, no, he's fine. He's right. Why am I always checking up on him? Go back to the gut. Mm-hmm. Go back to the stomach, because that is the truth. Like, there's nothing that's something I've been working on for the past few years, is just trying to listen to my gut, my intuition, not letting my brain or my heart override those two things. And it can really set you. It's one of those things. You're leveraging millions of years of evolution that's developed that intuition.
Ooh, okay. So you mentioned evolution, you mentioned line detecting. Can I like a little tangent of something that I just heard recently that I think is fascinating?
You just dorked out hard, yeah.
I did. Like, so, okay, this is going to seem like it has nothing to do, but it all ties in.
Okay.
So I forget where saw this, read this, something. I've been doing like a lot of like background reading lately. And so it was talking about this idea that why do humans drink alcohol? Right? And it's like, what is alcohol's purpose? And it does lots of things. You know, if you've had a drink, you're kind of familiar with how it makes you feel and all that stuff. But one of the really interesting things about alcohol is humans are social. And so how did we decide that this was a useful thing for us in groups? And so going back, evolution, right? Caveman kind of stuff. When you drink alcohol, you are more honest. It's much more difficult to lie. Also, when you drink alcohol, you're a better lie detector. And so part of what evolutionary people think in terms of like, how did alcohol become such a big part of humans' existence? Because we're social creatures, being able to detect lies is really important. So if you're sitting around in a group, like let's say, it's a bunch of like guys out on a hunting trip or something, and it's like you're out looking for the woolly mammoth or whatever you did out on the plains, right? And you're all kind of drinking, like you have this like shared bonding, honest experience where I'm more able to tell if you're lying, you're less able to lie, and we just kind of get down to the truth, and that builds bonds and trust in groups.
Interesting.
Right?
So alcohol is good for me. That's what I got from that lesson.
The things they don't tell you in high school.
Keep up with my tequila habit on Friday nights. I love that. Well, it does. It just cuts through all the BS, and it gets like to the true honesty. You're just going to be much more blunt with people, and you're likely a better lie detector because you're no longer being dishonest with yourself. Right? You're like you're like able to cut through it all and just get to the heart of it. You're no longer telling yourself the story, which is like, oh yeah, he was actually out with friends. He's fine. It's like, no, that's BS. Don't listen to that. Like you had a couple drinks. We're not putting up with that anymore.
Because to convince yourself of a story that's not true takes a tremendous amount of cognitive horsepower. Right? You've got to kind of like analyze it from different directions and convince yourself of things. There's like a lot of mental gymnastics that are going into that. And so, I don't know, you have a little glass of wine, all of a sudden it's like, nah, oh no, I'm going to start, I don't have the extra resources anymore. And it's the same thing with lying. To lie and be dishonest, you have to really think, what am I saying? How are they interpreting it? How might they misinterpret that? And it's like, you really have to be good at perspective taking. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it, but it's like after you've had a drink, you just aren't as willing or able to put all that effort into it, which I know this is a tangent, not about guys lying and things, but I find it fascinating. And it's like, I've been dying to share this somewhere. So here it is.
I love it. Hey, there you go. I will take that as a certain bias where we look for that information that we want to hear, and that one, I want to hear that information. Alcohol is good. That's good. That really supports my lifestyle. So perfect. Gary, take us home.
All right. So the last one, the lying loophole that guys will use in a dating context is selective truth. So they are telling the truth, but they're only giving you the parts of the story that are non-incriminating. They're purposely leaving out key details that the other person would want to know. But they are telling you 100% the truth. And you will see guys when they're doing this, be like, everything I said to you is the truth. Why aren't you believing me? And so how do you kind of thread that needle, right? And so you ask, what did you do last night? He says, I was with friends last night. Now, sure, he probably was with friends last night, but he was also with somebody else, and he was also trying to hook up with somebody else, or he also was texting somebody else, or God knows what other things he was doing, but he's like kind of just cherry picking the key pieces that are absolutely true and answering it in a way that is honest, but it's very selective, the parts that he's sharing.
Yeah. And that's one of the trickiest ones to be able to decode, for sure. If someone's just being selective with the truth, I mean, it is true, but there's also other information, which is why reading someone's body language is so, so important. And when it comes to master negotiators, if anyone, Gary, have you ever listened to like the podcast with the guys who've just like negotiated major deals with like terrorists, and like they know how to read every single cue if he's lying, if he looks away for even 1 second at this one given moment, like you just know. And I always love that, but God, I don't know about you, Gary, but I'm such a believer in everything people tell me. Like I have to really work at that regularly to tap into my own gut feeling, because by nature, I really believe that humans are great people. Like I really, truly believe that inside my soul, but it's only a certain percentage of them.
That is a better way though to be, right? And so I think that's a really good way to wrap this whole thing up, in just that we talked a lot today about people lying, about people being dishonest. But what Adam just said about, his default response is to basically implicitly trust people. And I do think that is the best starting point, is Just believe that people are telling you the truth until you have reason to believe that they're not. And what we gave you today are indicators where not necessarily that any of one of these is damning that they're a lying liar that's always going to be dishonest to you. It's more what we talk about all the time, which is be curious, evaluate the risk. They're leaving, they're sounding a little selective with the truth. They're deflecting, like they're doing these things. Okay, learn more and make sure you're not fooling yourself, because sometimes you're the easiest person to fool.
Yeah. I mean, time will tell. And how consistent a person is over a long period of time will tell you how much you can trust that person. And so if you're starting to get those uncomfortable feelings about a person, that intuition, ask more questions and give it more time before we continue to move forward with this person. Because that ultimately it will reveal itself, but we don't want to be just jumping in head first with someone just because our heart tells us one thing and we're avoiding what our gut is telling us. So Gary, this was a good one. This was fun. Thanks so much, man. And I'm going to go put on some pants.
Yeah. Thank you. Please put on pants.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.